Hello again. I have bad news and a good news. The bad news is that my staff has prepared something like 20 pages of concluding notes for me to read, and I think that it will take like an hour. But the good news is that I don't use them. Sorry, my colleagues. First of all, I would like to congratulate all the participants, especially the panelists, the commentators, the discussants, and especially the moderators for fulfilling the agenda that has been set for our conference. All the panelists have done their excellent jobs to present their views. The moderators have been really strict, more or less, in terms of timekeeping. And the participants are active in terms of providing the comments and questions. So I really would like to invite all of us to be self-congratulating now. This leaves me with a very light task of summarizing the points that have been raised in the last 2 days. And I think that I have almost no more to add, especially after we have 2 excellent concluding plenary sections where the panelists have helped us to review all the points that are connected to the previous sections, plenary sections, and that are really helpful in recapping on the points that have been raised in the concurrent sections. But I also have some I would say, concluding points that would echo the general themes of our conference, that is the cooperation for regional security and development in the South China Sea. We all heard for the last 2 days about rule-based orders. And I think that it is a legitimate theme for us to follow. And we all talk about the UNCLOS 1982 and the DOC and the COC and other arrangements and agreements, bilateral or multilateral. And I think that it is a great thing for us to recognize the importance of these treaties, conventions and agreements that serves as the backbones for the rule-based order. We also agree that multilateralism is still alive, even though it is facing some challenges right now. But multilateralism is in greater need for the solutions related to the South China Sea dispute. We all agree, I think, that the importance of a rule-based order and multilateralism lies in the very fact that the failure to abide by the UNCLOS or the failure to utilize fully the existing arrangements would lead to the situation we now have in the South China Sea, where the complicated situations is taking place. And we agree from the very outset of the conference that the situation seems to be more complicated than the last year when we had the 10th conference. And it leads to the, it is reflected in the discussion of our conference this year when we spent most of the time talking about the complicatedness related to the big powers rivalry in the South China Sea, the failure of some, the failure to solve the problems, even the small ones. And I think that it leads to even to the, like our colleagues had just said a few some dozen minutes ago, even to the prospect of greater environmental degradation, and that is really alarming. And our discussion in the last 2 days also focus on the behaviors or the activities, actions by the claimants as well as the stakeholders that include, of course, the claimants, the other countries, including the US, India, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Republic of Korea, EU, and others. And I think that it is really the matter here that we all agree and we all talk about China for most of the time. And the expectation here is that China is now qualified to be talked about as biggest claimant and as well as the rising power. And we all agree that it is here the great expectation that all the claimants and the stakeholders are expected to become part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And I think that we can be having more things to do along that line. The last section, the point raised was that the South China Sea dispute has become so internationalized. And it gets entangled in the big powers competition and rivalry. And it gives us the reasons to be pessimistic about that. But the optimistic aspect of that is that we have the UNCLOS to rely on. And this year, and this reflected in this conference that we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the UNCLOS. And I think that the UNCLOS still serves as the foundation for all the possible solutions to the disputes in the South China Sea. So what we have to do, I think, is to abide by the UNCLOS and to support the centrality of ASEAN. And I think these two lines are also the basis for the policy choice for Vietnam, not only in general terms of our foreign policy, but also in specific with regard to the South China Sea. So I'm sure that many of the international participants or members of diplomatic corps are really wishing to know what are the choices of Vietnam with regard to the South China Sea. The choices are many, but I think that the abiding by the UNCLOS and the supporting of the ASEAN centrality, like I said before, would be the foundation for our policy choices, and that would be the points I would like to echo the major and general themes of the discussion in the sections. I would like really to thank the panelists, the discussions, and the participants that help us to get the conference to reach this final moments of today. I would like to thank the supportive staff from the DAV, from the Foundation for East Sea Studies, and of course the Vietnam Law Association, and the staff of the Pan Pacific Hotel that help us diligently behind the scenes to make sure that everything goes smooth for us to conduct the serious academic discussion. The last thing I would like to say is that I would like to wish all the international participants of a smooth and safe trip back home. in order to not only to promote the research on the South China Sea, but also to spread the information about our series of conferences. Surely we would see each other again next year elsewhere in Vietnam for the 12th conference. So I thank you very much again for your participants. And see you again, the panelists, at the farewell dinner tonight. Thank you very much.